Good morning. My name is Natalie De Leon, and today we will be answering the question, how free are students in U.S. public schools? The American Library Association states there are at least 70 court cases relating to the First Amendment, and about half of these are about the First Amendment in U.S. public schools. So what is the claim? My claim is students' rights in the United States public schools have been restricted underneath the First Amendment. My resolution is more specific wording will result in a higher understanding of what the First Amendment encompasses and result in fewer court cases. So what is the First Amendment? The First Amendment guarantees U.S. citizens their right to freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, freedom of press, and their freedom of speech. For the purposes of this presentation, I will be using Lake Nona High School as my example for a U.S. public school. Like most other U.S. public schools, the Lake Nona High School has a code of conduct. This code of conduct outlines all the rules and limitations that students are subject to when arriving at the school. So looking at this image, what do you notice? Underlined in red, I have the most important things you should notice when looking at the code of conduct, the first page. I have who made it, the School Board of Orange County, who it applies to, when and where it applies to, and who it should be discussed with. This is important to notice because there are certain phrases such as applies to all activities and a reasonable time that are subject to many other people. So an average person looking at this document would not understand the specificities of what this document increases. A better example of a misunderstanding that could happen when looking at these kinds of phrases is the Tinker versus Des Moines Independent Community District court case, in which two students wore two black armbands to support their troops in the Vietnam War, like this image over here. So the court conclusion was that the students' rights were not being violated, or they were being violated because they did not, the school did not provide enough information to state that Ms. Tinker and Mr. Escort were violating the learning environment of the high school. This brings me to time, place, and manner. As said in our stimulus, time, place, and manner is the guide for reading between the lines of the First Amendment, or in this political cartoon, the cake of the First Amendment. Looking at these images, what do you notice? These are all examples of public forums. Public forums are places such as streets, roads, and other assembly areas where regular people would go for their place of assembly. This is important because students like us need a place of assembly for, let's say you're in student government and you need to raise money for a student class event. You need places like a public forum to get your words out there. Now, a lot of people have questions of whether or not this is relevant and whether or not this is safe for a lot of students. So it makes the places that students were going to assemble decrease, and therefore decreases their First Amendment rights. An example of the generalization problem in time, place, and manner is this court case, New York Civil Liberties Union versus New York City Police Department, in which a policy had existed in which said that the First Amendment would be decreased in the sidewalks of U.S. public schools. This is a bad thing for the students who attended these schools because they did not have a place for assembly and did not have a place to voice their words. Now, this policy had been changed to subject to what our world is today, and this is a world that needs the voices of students. This is important because Lake Nona once had a gun control protest. This gun control protest was held on the campus of the school, and it was held by students like this. Now, a student, Christina Salinas-Gorin, said, "I did not have to think hard when I decided to join the student-led protest. I've always followed my beliefs, and this was no exception." When word to this protest got to all the other leaders in the school, we were told that we were going to be either suspended or expelled for going to a protest such as this. However, people like me who went to the protest never actually got these kinds of things. And so this shows that people like us, like students, need to have public forums in order to express their rights. In conclusion, the future of students is held in the hands of the government, and the First Amendment has shown that we should protect the rights of students. And who's to say that this would not affect staff and other people in the school? What questions do you have? Angel?
Yeah, real quick. They didn't do anything to you guys for going to the gun
No.
control protest? No.
They wrote down our names at the end of the... She asked me a question. They wrote down our names
After the
at
presentation.
the...
Well, I mean, keep...
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to ask you questions.
Okay.
You can answer that question when you guys are done.
Okay.
Okay, how did your research question evolve as you can't do that one, sorry, because I gave you the research question. How did you select the strategies you used to gather information and conduct research?
I first had to look at the annotated bibliography. The annotated bibliography really helped in the setting of my presentation because I didn't really know how to go about the freedom of speech. Because usually with freedom of speech, people would first think of like dress code in student schools, but I didn't want to focus on just dress code or just these everyday things. I think the voice of students was more important, and I needed to find a way to get to the voice of students.
Thank you, and next question. What advice would you have for other researchers who consider this topic?
Do not get focused on different topics. Do not get like caught off track. Because as soon as I started talking about the gun control protests, I automatically wanted to go into, let's say, like terrorism or gun control or like other things that were mentioned, and I knew I would have lost track that way, and I wouldn't have gone to the implications or the limitations of what a student's rights was.
Perfect, you're done, thank you.